Right. So let's just begin. I know we have a good team out here, and I would really want to start by thanking everyone for being here on this call, especially today on 26th January, when we celebrate our Republic Day in India. So happy Republic Day to all, firstly.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I just wanted to very quickly share our journey with our son Raghav. So we started therapies for Raghav when he was around 8 months old, even before he was diagnosed with Angelman syndrome. And for the first 3.5 years, we had been going from one therapist to another, whether it be OT, PT, ST, speech therapy, IEP, many therapists. And however, amongst all this, I always felt that are these therapies really helping us as much as we need, as much as the potential which Raghav had? And all my skepticism changed when I was introduced to the Doman program by another parent. And really, that was the first time I realized that Raghav had so much untapped potential, like all our kids. And not just to grow and develop like other kids, but even to develop faster than other kids. And the first time I really heard the Doman team mentioning that, I couldn't believe it. But now I do. And Raghav has really proved it. Right. So instead of me just talking about it, let me start by showing you a small video which tries to capture a 2-year journey in 2 minutes. While I pull up the video, let me quickly thank and introduce Jagjit and Spencer, who are here with us from Doman International. Jagjit is part of the international team of coaches from Doman. She's based in Delhi, but actually mentors parents and children, not just from India, but other parts of the world as well. Spencer is the CEO of Doman International, and even though he's based in USA, but has often been traveling to India to guide parents like us. And of course, he's instrumental in designing the program for the families on the program. And the Doman team themselves have been working with many families with Angelman syndrome kids all over the world. So let me just try to get the 2-minute video working. And after that, I'll hand over the stage to the Doman team. So just give me a second while I figure out this technology. Yeah, share screen. Okay, share sound. All right. Here's the 2-minute video coming up. Let's hope it works.
Very
Stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up. Excellent. Good.
Oh, that's spiky.
Very good. Good job, Raghav. Come on your left, Raghav. Left. Raghav, which one says fireman? Raghav, fireman. Super. Multi-plug. Good job, Raghav. Multi-plug. All right. Okay, Raghav. Now, quickly we will check. Which one says heart? Heart kahan likha hai, Raghav? Heart. Heart. Very good, Raghav. Raghav, what is 17 plus 1 is equal to? Good job, Raghav. Excellent. 14 minus 5. Raghav, 14 minus 5 is equal to? Quickly, Didi phone de dengi aapko batao. 14 minus 5 is equal to 9. Very nice. Mama has 7 pencils and Mama gave away 2 pencils to Deepti Didi. Now Mama is left with how many pencils, Raghav? See, Raghav will tell me. Okay, Mama has how many pencils, Raghav? 5. Very good.
All right. So that's the quick overview of our journey for the last 2 years. Just a snapshot. But yes, over to the Doman team. Thank you, Spencer.
Well, thank you so much, Manish, for that really nice introduction. And I have to say that starting off with that video is kind of a perfect beginning because it shows what our program is designed to do on a day-to-day basis. And it's also, I think, far more interesting than maybe a lot of the things that I'm going to be talking about, because you get to watch little Raghav, get better day by day and do some, impressive things that probably, many professionals would even say are impossible for, a child with Angelman syndrome. So, thanks to all of you. Thanks for hosting me today. I really appreciate it. And I'll do my very best not to waste any of your time. I basically want to introduce you to Doman International and our work. I want to give you some practical recommendations because I like the idea of you leaving this presentation with some ideas of things you can do with your children. I'll give you some information about how you can learn more about Doman International, and of course, if we've got time, which I will, I'll have to depend on you to tell me how much time we all have. I'm happy to also get to questions at the end. So if you give me a moment, I'm just going to share my screen. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yep, thank you.
Yes.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. So, when I begin my talk, I really have to kind of just tell you my story a little bit so you know where I'm coming from. And to start my story, I have to begin with my grandfather, Glenn Doman. And so let me tell you a little bit about him. So he was a physical therapist who started his work in the 1940s and 50s. And basically, he found that the conventional therapies that he had been trained to do were really not doing a lot of good in helping his patients. And fortunately for the world, he was a very impatient person. And so when he found he wasn't getting results, he said, all right, well, if these things I've been taught to do aren't going to help, I need to create my own programs. And that's kind of what launched him into this field. And so he basically spent his life creating treatments and activities and programs to help his patients. And at a certain point, he realized that, well, I have a inpatient center. Families come from all around the world and bring their children here, but I can only help a certain number of children in my center. And he realized that if he taught parents how to do the treatments, how to do the activities with their children, that he could help more children. And also the parents often got better results than he could get, because the parents could devote more time to their children than the center could. And so all the treatments that we do, and I'll be talking a lot about this, are designed to improve brain development and function, right? The brain is the command center of our body. My ability to stand or sit here rather and talk to all of you is because my brain allows me to speak. It allows me to move my hands. As you sit there and you learn from the presentation, the information that's being carried from your eyes and ears to your brain, it's all because of brain function. And so all of our treatments are designed to improve brain function. And his programs were lovingly named the Doman method, Doman International. He did not name his organization Doman International. We named it in honor of his work. And he's best known around the world for writing his best-selling books. And so if you go to Amazon, there are 7 different Glenn Doman books that are both for kids with special needs and well neurotypical children. And I highly recommend that you do that. And you'll, I'm sure, find his books really fascinating. Just to tell you a bit about myself, so I am the CEO now for Doman International. So I'm lucky enough to be 3rd generation in this work. And I grew up basically on the campus of my grandfather's institute, and I got to watch my grandparents and my parents working with families with kids with special needs from all around the world. And so, a lot of my childhood days were spent in a waiting room playing with kids as they were waiting to go into the offices of my parents and grandparents. And I was also fortunate enough that my family has always had a kind of open door policy for children if we wanted to sit in while they worked with the families. So, and the families were more than happy to have us sitting there and learning. My parents and grandparents just told me, you're allowed to be in our offices at any time. You just, you can't distract. And so, a 9-year-old and 10-year-old Spencer had the opportunity to sit in and watch these sessions, and it completely changed my life. And so, even when I was in college, I was sure that this is what I wanted to do with my life. It doesn't matter how many times you see a child learn to walk for the first time or start talking for the first time. It's a miracle every time you see it. And it inspired me to go into this field. And so I've been working now for over 13 years. I'm so lucky I get to coach parents all around the world about the Doman method. My educational background is early childhood education. So just to tell you a little bit about what Doman International is, we are a nonprofit organization, and we're dedicated to helping children with special needs to develop, right, with the goal of wellness. And so we carry on my grandfather's mission of empowering parents. That's what we're about. And most of my time is spent teaching parents, not teaching other professionals. I'm happy to teach other professionals, and I do host talks, but our passion is teaching parents. We have come from various backgrounds. We have on our team special educators, we have doctors, we have allopathic doctors, we have Ayurvedic doctors, we have teachers and therapists, and every possible background, and that's really our strength. And really, what we focus on is integrative treatment programs and maximum results. What drives us is results. If something doesn't work, we drop it and we find something that does. We try to carry on my grandfather's personality of impatience with things that don't work. And so we combine our findings and research from the past with innovative new treatments. Like one of my other titles besides CEO is Chief Innovation Officer. So my goal is to keep finding new programs, whether we create them at Doman International or very often now we will find good treatments outside and bring them into the organization. Now, to kind of get to the underlying principle, I think that's important for us to cover. I want to talk about a genetic versus an epigenetic approach to treating children. And, I think that the kind of common attitude in society and the world toward children with genetic conditions like Angelman, right? I'm not saying that parents feel this way. I'm just saying it's kind of the attitude, is that if you've got a genetic condition, you are your genetics. And therefore, a child really has no potential for improvement. And I think that this is an idea that really, when genetics were discovered for the first time, there was this idea in the scientific community that once we understand the human genome, we will understand why we are the way we are, right? And the genome has now been mapped. And now there are many, many genetic conditions that are diagnosed, but it doesn't really seem to have transformed the way we help children with genetic conditions. And that's because of a myth. And the myth is that we are our genes, right? That I, Spencer, am exactly who I am because of my genome, and that Manish is exactly who he is because of his genome. And we are our genes, and there's nothing we can do about it. And we know that that isn't completely true because of something else which has been discovered, which is called epigenetics. Some of you may have heard of epigenetics. Epigenetics is the study, by the way, epigenetics means above genetics, is the study of how our genes are expressed. So some of you, if you kind of think back to your high school biology classes, you might remember this, but about 80% of our DNA is called junk DNA. Okay, 80% of our DNA is not expressed at all. So the Spencer that you see in front of you, I'm just an expression of about 20% of my genes. The other 80% are just kind of sitting there, don't really function. And the reason why is, and I know that I'm getting very kind of biological here, but there are proteins that select which genes are turned on and which genes are turned off. And these proteins, these amino acids, turn genes on and off all the time. Okay. And why is this important? Well, it turns that out that our environment around us affects our epigenetics. It turns out that what we eat, we put into our body, affects our epigenetics. The activities that we engage in every day affect our epigenetics, right? So for example, if I run every day and I exercise every day, that's going to affect which of my genes are turned on and which are turned off. If I never exercise, interestingly, what will happen, the amino acids will start to turn on genes that are more likely to promote obesity, cancer, diabetes, right? And if I exercise every day, they'll start to turn those genes off. And so what we now know, and this is largely over the last 10 years of scientific discovery, is that what we do and what we're exposed to affects the way our genes are expressed. So at Doman International, we're more focused on an epigenetic approach. What can we do as parents, as professionals, to affect how your child's genes are expressed? It's kind of like, let's look at the things we can control rather than the things that we can't control. And so you can see that I've said next to epigenetic, it's a neurological approach. And the reason why is neuroplasticity here is the key. I think neuroplasticity has become a buzzword now. Most people have heard of it. Neuroplasticity is the human brain's ability to change. And, you know, when we look at children with Angelman syndrome, and I can say this for children with almost any genetic abnormality or condition, what will people say? They'll say, well, because of this genetic syndrome, the child cannot talk, the child has intellectual disability, the child doesn't sleep well, the child, you know, has sensory issues, right? And they'll kind of list all these things. And the real truth is, yes, the child has a genetic condition, which has started a chain of events that leads to these symptoms. But the real reason why the child has these problems is because their brain development is not normal. The brain development is not normal because of the genetic condition. That's true. However, the human brain can change. The genome can't, but the human brain can. And if the human brain is able to change, since it's the command center for the body, then the child can change, right? And so the reason why the child can't talk, or the reason why the child may walk poorly or not be able to walk, or the reason why the child sleeps poorly, or all of these things is because of brain development. And fortunately, the brain can change. And so what are the things we can do to change the human brain? Well, first of all, we can provide stimulation. And you saw a lot of those videos of Raghav involved intellectual stimulation. Those things can lead to neuroplasticity. The activities, right, physical activities that we do, or speech development activities, or manual development activities, can also lead to improving brain plasticity. So once it's understood that a child's problems are the result of a neurological condition, and we understand that the brain is able to grow and develop, it's wrong to state that a child has no possibility of improving. right? And for most parents, they are told this along one, right? Probably many of you, when you met with a geneticist for the first time, the geneticist said, here's your child's genetic condition. Here are all the things your child won't do. And that's wrong. That is putting that ceiling on a child is wrong, because I do have to say, in every case that I've seen, in terms of different genetic diagnoses, I have seen at least one child who was able to greatly overcome the predictions or the ceiling that was placed on them by the geneticists. And so it is our responsibility to create treatment programs which lead to improvements in brain function. And so one of the phrases my grandfather was most famous for is that the brain grows by use. What we do with all of the activities that we give a child is they're all meant to stimulate and get the brain working in ways that it doesn't work normally. And by doing that, we get the child to gain new abilities. And so, and by the way, I hope you don't mind, there might be certain parts of this presentation I move quickly through. It's just because I do want to make sure I finish on time and get your questions. Now, why do we focus on teaching parents? Well, it's because no one is more important in a child's life than their parents. I remember when I was doing my master's degree in early childhood education, and the first course that I took, the professor said, look, you can be the best early childhood educators. In the end, the most important person in a child's life is their parents, and they're going to be the biggest influence in their academic success, not you. And that's exactly how we feel. And so, no one loves a child more than their parents. No one is more devoted. No one will be willing to give more time for a child's well-being than their parents. Children are also comfortable with their parents. And so that allows them to be comfortable doing certain treatments and activities that they may not be willing to do with professionals. And so what one of my grandfather's, I think, greatest discoveries was that if we empower parents, that parents could apply the treatment at home with love. And the children did better than he dreamed. Okay, so let me just introduce you a bit to what are underlying principles that we've discovered, and then how are the ways that we implement these things at home with kids. And we have, like I said, principles that we've discovered that have become values, let's say. And one of our values is that there's no relationship between neurodevelopmental delay and intelligence. But there is a huge relationship between neurodevelopmental delay and the ability to express intelligence. So what do I mean by this? Well, there is this widespread myth that children with special needs are not smart. It is a myth that has existed for all of human existence. And unfortunately, it has caused a lot of problems for kids with special needs, because the thing is, if you believe that a child is unable to learn, then you won't try to teach them in the first place. And so that has happened with children with special needs for generations and generations. And so what we say is there's actually a big relationship between neurodevelopmental delay and the ability to express intelligence, right? So right now you are all learning using your sensory pathways. You're watching my presentation and you're listening. You're using your visual and auditory pathways to learn. That's how we all learn, through our sensory pathways. Now, here's the thing. The way we express intelligence is through our speech pathways and our mobility pathways. So the thing is, you can be highly intelligent, see and hear and understand, but be unable to express through speech. The best example of this is someone like Stephen Hawking, the astrophysicist, who was brilliant, one of the most brilliant men of his generation, and yet was completely unable to speak or move. And very fortunately for him, he had a device that he could use to speak for him. And fortunately also, he was well and healthy before he got motor neuron disease, which is the disease that destroyed his ability to speak and move. But what I've always said to parents is, imagine if Stephen Hawking had been born the way he was later in life. Would anyone have thought Stephen Hawking was like a brilliant person locked in a body that won't do what he wants? Unfortunately, probably no one would have thought that. They would have just assumed, he doesn't speak, he doesn't move, so therefore he doesn't understand. And that is a very sad conclusion to come to, and unfortunately for many kids, untrue. And so what we have learned is that we need to be able to stimulate and teach children, even if they're unable to express everything to us. And the reason why I love that you all got to watch those videos of Raghav is that you could watch him express his intelligence without having to use speech. Right? He was showing that, 19 minus 1 equals 18, or, he was reading different words, and he was doing it by pointing with his hands. Now, even pointing is a form of expression, but fortunately for Raghav, he's able to express himself in that way. But his speech is not yet at the place where he could read those words aloud, for example. But the thing is, you can see, right, that he is highly intelligent, and because he's received all this stimulation now, he has started to express his intelligence in these ways. And so, I think that this is a very important principle for all of you to understand, that just because your child doesn't speak or they don't walk well, or any kind of manifestation of a neurological issue, it does not mean necessarily that their understanding is poor. Children can be highly, highly intelligent and not be able to speak, for example. And so our program is very focused on intellectual stimulation, regardless of a child's speech or mobility development. Well, the next thing is that we have found, to treat the brain successfully, we need an integrated approach. Right? Very often the way that children with special needs are treated kind of in the kind of conventional field is, it's like, okay, if you get 30 minutes of speech therapy and maybe 30 minutes of physical therapy a week, that's enough. And the first thing is, I think most parents know that isn't enough time in a week to get significant results. But the other thing is, there's no kind of overarching integrative approach to treating these children. It's kind of like they're getting these pockets of therapy, but there's no one team which is looking at the child's entire development. And so that's what we focus on. We focus on 3 different areas of development: a child's physiological development, which is their health, their sleep, their nutrition, their digestion, basically the function of their body. We found that that's very important. Next, physical development, getting that child walking, running, using their hands, fine motor skills, right? And then lastly, intellectual development, getting that child smart, talking, having good sensory development. Some children have hypo or hypersensitivity, so we do sensory programs to address those issues. So by using this integrative approach to looking at a child holistically, we find we can get the best results. Yeah, so here, just to give you a little bit of an example, you have a physical activity. Many people will look at this and say, oh, that's monkey bars, right? We call this activity brachiation. And here you can see Nicole. Nicole has a rare genetic condition called Phelan-McDermott syndrome. And Phelan-McDermott, just to give you an idea, it's said that 80% of children with this condition will either never walk, or they'll walk very poorly. Nicole runs 5 kilometers a day, and you can see here that she is moving across those monkey bars effortlessly, right? And with good strength. And so why do we do an activity like this, right? Here, by the way, you can see little Sophia. Sophia has Down syndrome, and she's also doing this brachiation activity. So why is this activity helpful? Well, first of all, it does things like it improves fine motor skills because when the child grasps each bar, it is stimulating the pincer grasp, right? Which is essential for being able to feed yourself, to being able to button and unbutton, or to unscrew a bottle, right? Most fine skills that we humans have depend on using our thumb and forefinger together. So it stimulates that. It also stimulates good vision, right? You can see that Sophia is looking at the next bar as she goes to grab it, right? So she's using her two eyes together, an ability that not all kids with special needs have, right? They might have problems with eye contact. They may have problems converging their vision and using their two eyes together. And so this also stimulates vision. This also, being a physical activity, it helps grow the chest, right? Which is very important for lung capacity. Lung capacity helps deliver more oxygen to the brain. It's very good for brain development. And also better lung capacity and control is very important for speech. So you can see here we have one activity, but there are a multitude of reasons why we do it, right? Because it helps the brain development in a bunch of different areas. And by the way, if we look at Down syndrome, for example, which is the genetic condition we're most familiar with, because even when my grandfather was starting his work in the 50s, Down syndrome was well known and understood, but most other genetic conditions were not. Many children with Down syndrome are often considered to be academically not inclined. Some people, we would never use this term, but some people would even say mentally retarded, unable to succeed in school, poorly coordinated, all of that. And what we've found is that children with Down syndrome are highly intelligent. And in fact, we have children with Down syndrome who have graduated from with master's degrees, who they have more degrees than their parents did, who are completely neurotypical. And so, so we don't buy into this idea that your genome, determines who you are. So everything your child learns, right, they learn through the 5 sensory pathways. And the sensory pathways are highways carrying information into the brain. And so if you want to stimulate the brain, the best way to do it is by using those 5 pathways: the ability to see, hear, feel, taste, and smell. And so these sensory pathways, like it says there, are highways into the brain. And so the more you stimulate these pathways, the more you can actually impact the development of the brain. And so our program includes a lot of sensory stimulation because it's the most effective tool for changing the brain. Now, one of the most important things, right, when it comes to any kind of treatment is what's the dosage, right? It's like if a doctor said to you, here's a drug that's going to help you, you would, need to know the dosage before you could take it. And so one of the most important things when doing any activity is what is the frequency, the intensity, and the duration of doing that activity. Frequency is how many times you have to do it to make it effective. The intensity is how strong do you have to do it. And the duration is how long do you have to do it. And so many of the things that Doman International teaches, by the way, are well understood in the professional world, right? A lot of the sensory stimulation techniques we teach, people know about them. A lot of our physical programs, people know about them. But the thing is, they don't know the correct frequency, intensity, and duration to do that activity to get the best results. And so that's what we've learned over time. right? What is the best frequency, intensity, and duration to do these treatments to yield the maximum results? So, I mentioned earlier the importance of physiology for kids, and that the way that their body functions is essential for their brain development. And so we look closely at a child's nutrition and their diet, making sure that they get optimal sleep, making sure that their environment is, that the water they're getting is clean, the air that they're breathing is clean, because we found that this is essential for a child to progress physically and intellectually, right? If a child is chronically ill, expecting us to get good results from a physical or cognitive standpoint would be very, very difficult. If a child is not sleeping well, can they really focus well when we're trying to, teach them math or reading? And so we have learned, again, this is all part of the integrative approach, that we have to help a child sleep, give them the best absolute diet possible, and give them the best environment possible to have those kinds of results. The second part of that integrative treatment, right after the physiological, is physical development. And so physical activity, and you saw this in those pictures before of the children engaging in brachiation, right? The monkey bars. Physical activity is essential for your child to progress in all areas. So physical activity is not just important for movement. It's very good for visual development. A lot of a child's visual development is dependent on their mobility development. Interestingly, the same area of the brain that controls coordination and of movement, it's a low area of the brain called the midbrain, is also responsible for visual control and movement. And so as a child's mobility improves, their vision also improves. It helps breathing, which is very important for speech. Physical activity helps improve sleep, digestion. It helps intellectual development. It's been well understood for years that schools that give children opportunities to do physical activity in school have higher test scores, right? And so it's been well known that physical activity helps concentration and focus, intellectual development, academic achievement, and speech development. And the last of those three steps, right? We talked about physiology, we talked about physical. The third step is intellectual stimulation. And it's very important to give sophisticated intellectual stimulation for a child with special needs. And so, when we show videos of us teaching children to read or to do math, first of all, many professionals are just absolutely shocked, right? Like, what? Like, you can teach a child with Angelman's to read or do math? Like, for many of them, they've never even considered it before, because they assume that because the child doesn't speak well, that they couldn't learn. So that's the first problem. And then also you might get some real negativity from some, where they say, well, what's the point? And that's kind of horrific. Like, what's the point of giving a child education and better quality of life? And that's really a terrible mindset toward, helping kids with developmental delays. And so what we have found when we give a lot of intellectual stimulation to a child is, it's of course very important for their understanding. It's important for their vocabulary and speech. It's important for their maturity, right? Because they start to see themselves in a more sophisticated way, because they see the way that they are respected by the people around them. And of course, it's very important for success in later life. Now, there's a whole part of our program that I won't get into much today. But it's a very important part of the program, which is we have different respiratory programs that are devoted to helping breathing. And the reason why we focus on breathing is oxygen is the food of the brain, right? And, you and I, if we are denied food or water, can even survive for weeks without those things. But if all of us right now, if oxygen was cut off in our rooms, the best of us would make it about 4 minutes. Okay. So our brain is completely dependent on oxygen, and very often kids with special needs don't breathe well enough. Very often when we check their oxygen saturation levels, they're low. Their brain is not being fed enough oxygen. And that means they're kind of in a chronic state of hypoxia, of lack of oxygen. And so when that happens, they're not able to focus or concentrate very well. Some children have seizures and epilepsy because of that. Very often they don't have much energy. And so by doing these programs, we find we can improve concentration, learning ability, energy, mobility, speech, almost any area of development. And so we have 3 kind of very special programs that we call Doman method oxygenation programs that we've used for decades to improve oxygen delivery. All right, let me just jump into some tools for parents. I'm just giving myself a time check. By the way, if at any point we need to wrap things up, you just let me know. So what are some things that, I do want to be practical here. I want to give you all some things that even if you decide never to look into Doman International, I'd like to give you some things to at least consider with doing with your kids. So the first thing that I would recommend is looking at your child's diet and removing junk foods, unprocessed foods from your kid's diet. Like I mentioned before, we found that nutrition is an essential part of a child's development. A lot of people don't know that outside of our brain, the largest number of brain cells called neurons are actually in our digestive tract. Okay, so we have 500 million neurons in our digestive tract. And so they are communicating all the time with our brain. That's why there's this ancient expression long before brain science was understood, where people would say, when you're trying to make a decision, go with your gut. There was always this kind of idea that we have, the gut has an important role in our ability to think, and it does. And so we found that when we improve the diet of the children, the function of the neurons in the gut improves, and that then helps the brain function better. This is called the gut-brain connection, and a lot of people have now heard about that. I have to say, it's not right for me to give dietary recommendations for a child I've never seen before. But what I can say to parents is consider looking at common food allergies or foods that children are intolerant to, and consider removing them. And I would say that the 2 biggest food groups that are the children that we see have problems with are dairy and gluten. Dairy being cow's milk or any other animal's milk, or wheat and gluten. Those tend to be the most common intolerances. And there are many children that we see that when we remove these foods from their diet, we see their development improve in a myriad of ways. And it's because that specific food in their body, that their body is essentially not responding well to those foods. I would also add to that, sugar is a big problem food for a lot of the children that we see. And so I would highly recommend to all of you to look at your child's diet and to consider eliminating these things. Maybe not all at once. Maybe you pick one food at a time. Maybe you just start with sugar and you see how your child does with it, and I would recommend if you're going to make a change, you got to make it for at least 2 weeks to really see if your child responds positively to it. Then the next recommendation that I'd give to all of you is give your child as much opportunity to move as possible. It might have occurred to you that as you watched those videos of Raghav doing his activities as he like learned to walk, and over time learned to walk faster and faster and better, that he's getting a lot of opportunity to move. And unfortunately, I think we live in an age where children have less opportunity to move than they did in the past. And so we always say, whatever your child's highest mobility ability is, let them do a lot of it. So if your child can run, you should bring them out every day to run, right? Or if your daughter is able to walk, bring her out to walk, because she needs that activity as much as possible to help her move to the next mobility level. If your child can creep on hands and knees, do that, a lot of it, right? Much better for your child to be creeping or crawling on their belly all around the house than in a chair or in a stroller where they don't have the opportunity to move. So for mobility development, opportunity is the key. Here you can see another girl, Sophia. She actually has another genetic condition called trisomy 12. And in this, at this time in this video, or in this photo, she was 4 and she wasn't able to walk yet, but you can see here she's creeping, right? Her parents are kind of smart. They've made a path for her around the house where she can creep. They've put some stuffed animals as her audience to make it more fun for her. And by giving her tons of opportunity to creep on her hands and knees, she learned how to walk. And so Sophia started walking. I think parents are really surprised by our recommendation to teach children to read. And the most important thing, the reason why we're so often successful with teaching kids to read, is we make print size large. You might have noticed in the video that Raghav was getting single words. So there were words on cards and the print size was quite large. That's done on purpose. It's done that because for many kids with special needs, their vision is not clear. And so the bigger the print size, the easier it is for them to see it clearly. And so we actually start with quite large print size. And then over time, we reduce the size. But here you can see a little girl, Alessandra, getting started with a reading program with large print size. If you want to learn more about this program, my grandfather wrote a book called How to Teach Your Baby to Read. So you could go to Amazon and type in How to Teach Your Baby to Read, Glenn Doman. It's by far his most best-selling book. It's sold 5 million copies around the world. And the other thing that you can do is you could go to Google and search for Doman Learning. We have a website, domanlearning.com, that has reading materials and courses about doing this program. Here's just a quick video of a kid. His name is Noah. This was 1 week after starting the reading program, and he's just presenting some of the things he's learned.
What is it? Pig. What's pig? What's pig? Good. What is it? A cow. Good. What is it? A sheep. Black sheep. How about this one? Noah? What is it? The horse. Very good.
So you can see there that, again, Noah may not be able to say those words yet, but he's definitely learned how to read them. And you can see also he's kind of enjoying showing off his ability. So that premise of showing large print, very, very important. And then we also teach parents how to do it with the right repetition so that a child can learn how to read. Of course, another really important part of our program is establishing successful communication. And I can't spend a lot of time on this today, but if you're interested, if you go to YouTube and you search for this video, Enhancing Speech Development in Children with Special Needs, it's a 1-hour presentation that I just do about speech and communication. And so if you're interested in this topic, and I do give away a lot of like practical to-dos in this video. Okay. I said before, children with special needs have a great capability. And so we tell parents, your child is smarter than you think, right? And it's really important to believe in your child's intelligence. Your child will progress faster if you believe that they're smart, because if you believe that, the way you interact with your child changes. The way you speak to your child, you will stimulate your child in ways that you didn't do before. You will introduce your child to things that you wouldn't have done otherwise. And so that having that strong belief in your child is very important. And we strongly believe in kids too. And so our reading program is just one part of our cognitive development program. We have a math program. This, you can see here a child, his name is Palayo, is getting our encyclopedic knowledge program, where we teach about a wide variety of subjects. He's learning about sports in this session with his mom, but we can teach a child about nearly any subject with our encyclopedic knowledge program. Okay, so one of the most important things in the way that we help children begin the process of walking and running is we have understood that gravity is an enemy for children with special needs. And what I mean by that is one of the most difficult things for a child to do is to begin the process of like getting up on their hands and knees and creeping and then getting up and walking. And the reason for that is gravity is pushing our bodies down into the ground. And so as humans, we defy that force actually when we stand up and begin to walk, but it's much harder for children with neurodevelopmental issues. And so we've created a variety of programs that take the enemy of gravity and make it into a friend. So for example, for children who don't crawl yet, what we do is we use something called an inclined floor that takes the enemy of gravity and makes it into a friend. So what you can see here is Theodora on the inclined floor. And Theodora doesn't move yet, right? She can't walk. She can't even crawl on her belly. But on the inclined floor, if she moves her arms and legs a little bit, she will actually move forward on the floor. And if she does it again, she'll move forward. And so her brain starts to learn, oh, if I move my arms and legs a little bit, I begin to crawl. And so I've just got a little video here to show you how this works. And this is, a program that we've used for now 60 years with getting children to move for the first time. So please note that even small movements from this girl help her with moving down the floor. You can see she's crawling actually toward a toy. And now you're going to see a video. This is her several months later. And here she is actually crawling on the flat floor and using a lot. You can see her using her arms here, her legs here. So that opportunity is helping her with, moving forward. Okay, so you see, so here you can see another program that we use called the Gravity Assisted Program. Again, for a child who doesn't know how to creep on their hands and knees yet, if they're unable to learn it on their own, we've devised a way of taking the enemy of gravity and making it into a friend. And then the last thing here is a program that we call Glenn's Ladder, named in honor of my grandfather who created this. And this is for children who haven't learned how to walk yet. And so I'll show you this video of Nicholas. And what you'll see is that Nicholas hasn't learned how to walk yet, but with Glenn's ladder, holding on to the dowels of the ladder, he can actually learn how it feels to walk, right? His brain and his muscles can learn how it feels to hold his weight, and also learn how to walk in a correct cross pattern. When we walk in a cross pattern. So when my left leg goes forward, my right arm goes forward, and vice versa. And so if you watch this video, you'll see how thousands of children have learned to walk under Glenn's ladder. So you could see there that he was learning how it feels to walk. He's learning how to bear his own weight, right, with his body. And so what happened with Nicholas and with thousands of other children who have used that ladder is that at a certain point, they realize, oh, I can now do this without holding onto the ladder. I can now bear my own weight. And so they will take their hands off the ladder and begin the process of taking steps forward. And so it is truly a remarkable, simple, but very important piece of equipment for getting a lot of children to walk who wouldn't have otherwise learned to do so. If you go to our website, you can spend a lot more time looking at our program success and results. We're very proud of our results and we publish them openly. So just to give, these are our most important results. I don't think we have the time to go through all of them, but please, for example, note there in the top middle, the percentage of children who have learned to read on the program. So for example, for a child to achieve that reading victory, to get counted in that statistic, they have to read over 100 words. So it's not that a child has to read one word, they have to read 100 words to be counted in that statistic. You can see that for 87% of children who couldn't understand instructions in sentences, 87% began to comprehend. You can see that 59% of children who are unable to talk when they start the program begin to speak. Now, when we say begin to speak, it's not just one word. Our criteria is, they need to say 10 to 25 words and start to speak in couplets, which are 2 words together, like "Hi, Mom," or "Come here," things like that. You can see 48% of children who are unable to write learn to write. 54% of children who are unable to walk learn to walk, right? So our statistics are not perfect. We've still got a lot to learn. And, one of the reasons why we even have statistics in the first place and publish them is not just to say, look at our statistics compared to most organizations. By the way, most organizations don't publish their statistics publicly. And sadly, it's because they don't have much to be proud of. But the other reason why we publish our statistics is to hold ourselves accountable. So if we're not achieving good enough statistics in one of these areas, then we know we've got to improve. And so, it's very, very important for us to do that. 55% of children who could not run began to run. All right, everyone. So before I launch into answering questions, I want to quickly go through how to stay in contact with us. By the way, Manish, do you think it's okay if I take 5 more minutes?
Yeah, sure, definitely.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So, by the way, as I run through these slides, feel free to pull out your phone and take a photo. Okay. This is public information. We're even recording this. So sometimes parents want to remember our website name, and it's fine for you to do that. So first of all, here's our website, our Facebook page, our Instagram page. These are great ways to follow us. We do try to publish helpful recommendations on social media and on our website. We have a blog, so check out our website. I think you'll find it very interesting and helpful. The next steps to learn about our work is, if you want to learn about our program, see if the Doman method would be right for your child and your family, please contact us. That's why we're here. We're happy to answer any of your specific questions. The next step, if you want to begin our program, is we have an online course, which is called the Doman Method from Special Needs to Wellness. And when you take that online course, you can then begin doing a program at home, using the information you've learned in the course, and hopefully getting wonderful results with your child. Now, if you want to contact us, you can go to our website. There's a contact button. So if you forget how to get in touch with us, if you go to domaninternational.org and you click contact, we'll get in touch with you. Here it is. Yeah, here's Jagjit's contact information. So, Manish mentioned and introduced Jagjit. Jagjit is here, by the way. So even if you wanted to type your contact info into the chat box, Jagjit could reach out to you directly. But this is Jagjit's email address and her phone number. Jagjit is our, not just Doman International's representative in India and Asia. She's also a fully trained Doman method coach. She is a staff coach for dozens of families on our program. She, like me, teaches cognitive development programs in our organization. So you're not just getting someone who can pick up the phone and answer your questions. Jagjit has now for years actively taught our programs. And so she's really the ideal person for you to reach out to. There is her phone number. Again, feel free to take a snapshot of this if you want and reach out to Jagjit. I just want to show you a quick video about the online course, just to give you an idea of what it's like. It is, I think this video is literally 60 seconds long, so it's not long.
The Doman Method online course is the first comprehensive online course ever created for families of children with special needs. The course is designed to teach parents integrative treatments that help their children develop in the best possible way. It is taught by the world's leading experts in the Doman Method. Created by Glenn Doman over 60 years ago, the Doman Method has helped tens of thousands of children with special needs.
Okay, so you're looking for, first of all, does the child hear the sound? Second of all, can the child locate the sound?
This 4-week online course is designed to empower parents to help their children. During the course, parents access 25 hours of lectures about the Doman Method and child development, as well as hours of live question and answer video conferences with Doman International's coaches. Now, every parent worldwide can access knowledge at their fingertips, which before was impossible. The Doman Method course online, empowering parents to transform children.
One thing that we were so fortunate for, that the course, all those video segments that you saw of us teaching, that's what you watch when you take the online course. It's much more, let's say, technologically advanced than a webinar like this. You're actually sitting in an auditorium with other people, at least through the video. And we actually filmed the course in 2018 in New Delhi. And I'm so grateful that we did. We had no idea the pandemic was going to hit, of course, but it has enabled now thousands of parents to take our course online, even when they weren't able to travel. All right, everyone. Well, first of all, I want to thank all of you for just being here and listening. What I always tell you is, whether you go on to read the Doman books or come to our course or reach out to Jagjit, or if you never even look into the Doman work again, I just urge all of you, never, never, never give up. Keep doing what you're doing. I think it's fantastic. I can see that as a group, you're working together to bring knowledge and help to each other. And I'm glad that you're not accepting the negative idea that exists in so much of the world that genetics determines everything. And just keep up your great work. And we're here to help you if you ever need it. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, Spencer. Spencer, do you have some time for question and answers?
Absolutely. I can be here for I can be here for 15 minutes, and then
Okay.
unfortunately I have another presentation to do.
All right. Okay. All right. Sure. So thank you, everyone. If you have any questions, please either you can share your hand or unmute and just yeah, please fire away. Okay. There.
Oh, you know, I just want to say, Jagjit, I see some people did ask if you could share your number. So if you could just put it in the chat box, that would be great. All right, so there are two questions actually in the Q&A box. I'm not sure. I don't think anyone else is able to see it besides me, but maybe they are. So there's a question here, and by the way, if I don't pronounce your names correctly, forgive me. So there's a question here from Chavi who says, my daughter is 11 and a half and used the Avaz app. She's a US citizen. In the future, we want to move her to the US for learning daily skills and pre-vocational skills. Right now, she is in a global intervention program doing mathematics till 4 digits addition and subtraction, and sight reading books small, of course. In the US, which is the best place to go in the US for her further excelling in life? She walks, runs, and does a lot of core workout. All right, Chavi, this is a very good question. To be honest with you, I don't know an incredible amount about things like pre-vocational training. Just because it's not the area that I, spend a lot of my time looking into. I do want to say I think it's amazing what you've done with her so far, and I can see that you've done a lot of great intellectual stimulation with her. One thing that I would highly recommend that you consider, just looking at her kind of future, is that if you look into our programs, there might be things that we can recommend that are things that you haven't yet gotten. You mentioned that you've used the Savaz app, which I have to be honest, I don't know that application. I'll have to look into it. You also say you've done this global intervention program. Obviously, they're onto some good stuff if you're doing math and reading at a high level with her. But there might be certain recommendations that we can give to you that would be good to further her brain development that you haven't gotten already. So, please, 11 and a half is not too old, to continue to look for answers. We even work with young adults in terms of, helping them develop socially, develop in their independence, develop in their speech development, basically every area of development. So we focus a lot on children because when we talk, usually 85-90% of the people listening have children maybe under 8 to 10 years of age. But that being said, we have, like I said, young adults on our program, even 30-year-olds who are on our program because, parents say, that my child still has a ways to go and I want my child to be independent and, be as successful in life as possible. All right, the next question that I see here, well, actually, this kind of goes to what I was just saying. The parent is saying, can this program be started with a child of any age group? My son is 15 years old And I have not trained him for anything. And the answer is yes. Yeah, absolutely. We work with every age group. Interestingly, my grandfather started his work not with children, but with people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s who had suffered strokes. So they had suffered brain damage later in life, and he worked first in their rehabilitation. And then he realized, oh, I can get better results even with children, right? Because kids' brains are even more plastic than adults' brains. So, the answer is absolutely. 15 years old for us is not, we don't consider that old. We work with a lot of teenagers. All right. Oh, okay. So I have a question here from Subash. Again, this is all in the Q&A box. By the way, Manish, are you able to see the Q&A box? I'm not sure if that's just the host or me.
Yeah, I can see it. Yes.
Okay, good. So Subash says, are the Domans part of the Institutes for the Achievement of Human Potential in Philadelphia? I've read their books way back to 2002. Yeah, so Subash, this is kind of a long story, and probably one that it would be hard for me to tell it in 10 minutes. And but my grandfather, Glenn, worked at the institutes. He founded the institutes in 1955. And so he created the institutes. My parents, Douglas and Rosalind, who, my dad is the founder of Doman International. So I'm the CEO, but my dad founded it. My parents worked at the institutes for 40 years. I worked at the institutes for 12 years. So we all worked at the institutes, and at the very end of 2017, we separated with the institutes. And it's for a wide variety of reasons. And honestly, it's not worth everyone's time going into them. But we had big differences in terms of vision with them. And so basically, my parents, Douglas and Rosalind, you might recognize my dad's name from some of the books that you've read, because he's the preeminent mobility development expert in our program. My parents and I, and my wife Melissa, and my sister Morgan, and Jagjit. Basically, a lot of our senior team at Doman International decided to separate with the institutes. It was one of the most difficult things we've ever had to do, but it really came down to a big difference in vision of how to carry our work forward, how to help as many kids as possible. And so the institutes, look, it's a wonderful organization. They have a great mission to help children. We just, we didn't agree on how to further spread the work of the Doman method and continue to drive forward continued innovation in the Doman method. And for that reason, we separated. So it's kind of a long story, and it's political. But yeah, that's basically where we're coming from. Oh, by the way, Chavi, just to let you know, Chavi is saying we'll see you in person in June for sure. So yeah, we're located in Philadelphia here in the U.S., which is about 2 hours from New York. Jagjit is in New Delhi, as Manish mentioned. But we are starting to expand our services in India to different cities. So for example, in February, we're starting to do evaluations in Bangalore, and maybe at certain times throughout the year also in Mumbai. But we're just starting to do that because fortunately we have 3 amazing members of our team, senior trained staff who are Indians. And so they are helping us expand our work more and more into India. Yeah, Subhash is following up here. He says, we have followed your book, What to Do About Your Brain Injured Child and How to Teach Your Baby to Read and How to Teach Your Baby Math since 2006, got great results. We are keen to take this program now. We could not travel then. Well, that's wonderful. And yeah, so Subhash mentioned 3 of my grandfather's books. And again, if you go to Amazon, you can search for them, and and of course, Jagjit can also answer your further questions about it. But Subhash, I'm so happy. One of the things that brings us the most happiness is when there are families out there that have learned about our work. We've never met them yet, but they've benefited from it. And I'm so glad that you got great results. And I look forward to meeting you in person in the future. All right, so I see another question here. Hi, thanks for clearing the doubt about the age limit to join the course. Just wanted to ask if there's a minimum age required to join the course considering special needs children. So there's no minimum age. And in fact, more and more now, we have pregnant moms taking the course because maybe they've done an amniocentesis or some other prenatal testing has shown that their child has some kind of genetic condition or neurological condition. And so we have some families who literally know about our program from the moment their child is born and they get started. So no, absolutely no minimum age. Good question. All right, those are all the questions that I see here. I do have 5 more minutes, so I'm happy to answer any more. I do see that Jagjit has posted her phone number in the chat box. And also Jagjit has put a link there to her Calendly account. Calendly is if you've never heard of it before, you click on it and you'll see like all of Jagjit's available times, and it's in your time zone. So regardless of where you are, you'll see her available times. You just book a time and a Zoom link will be sent to you in Jagjit. So it's just a very easy, effective way of scheduling like a free call with Jagjit. Any other questions? Subhash is saying, thanks, Spencer. Looking forward to meeting you sometime. Doman vision and work is outstanding, and we would like to stay connected. Fantastic. Yeah, I look forward to meeting you too. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And if you're ever interested in the future, I'm happy to do. If we, this presentation I know is really an overview presentation. I'm kind of throwing a lot of information at all of you. But if you're ever interested in the future in doing maybe some kind of workshop on a specific topic, I'm more than happy to come back and do that. So. But thank you so much for hearing me out.
Yeah, thank you, Spencer. This was really great. And one thing which I'm most grateful to the Doman program is for helping us find the faith. Like many of us parents, we are very tired, and often just sometimes cry alone at night. And I think that's the real and the most important thing for me is faith in ourselves and faith in our children, who have really proved that they are just more than kids with Angelman syndrome. So, and I have totally Doman team to thank for that. So thank you so much, Spencer. Thank you, Jagjit, and thank you, Pooja, for helping in all this. And thanks for everyone to be part of this webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, everyone, have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.